"Mr. Henderson," she said, and her voice was trembling. It wasn't a tremble of fear. It was the high-pitched, tea-kettle-on-the-boil quiver of pure, unadulterated, beige-tinted rage, the kind of rage usually reserved for discovering a new tax or a dandelion pushing up through a crack in the driveway. Her name was Brenda. She was the president of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association, and she was pointing. Her finger, tipped with a perfectly neutral HOA-approved manicure, was aimed like a sniper's rifle at my backyard. "That structure," she hissed, the word structure sounding like she'd just tasted sour milk, "is an unapproved, hazardous, and frankly garish eyesore. It must be removed. Immediately." I followed her trembling finger, squinting into the afternoon sun. I saw the structure. It was a skateboard ramp. To be clear, it wasn't some X Games monstrosity. It was a sheet of 3/4-inch plywood, bent over a frame of 2x4s. It stood, at its highest, a towering 3 feet off the grass. It was 6 feet long. It wasn't painted. It was just wood. I'd built it with my 12-year-old son, Leo, just last Saturday. It was the first time he had voluntarily surfaced from the glowing blue light of his phone in what felt like months. We'd spent 4 hours measuring, sawing, okay, I sawed, he held the tape measure, and drilling. We'd sweated. We'd high-fived. He'd actually smiled, a real one, not the hostage situation grimace he usually gave me. My wife, Sarah, had watched from the porch, sipping iced tea, and I'd felt, for one brief, shining moment, like I was nailing this whole dad thing. Now, Brenda was looking at it like it was a flaming bag of dog poop on her doorstep. Whispering Pines wasn't really a whispering kind of place. It was a muttering judgmentally from behind closed blinds kind of place. Every house was painted in one of 3 approved shades of beige: desert sand, gentle fawn, or quiet khaki. Our lawns were manicured to within an inch of their lives. The only pines were a few sad decorative spruces that looked like they were being held against their will. We were a community so sterile, it could double as a dental office screensaver. Harmony was maintained through a shared, silent terror of the HOA's monthly newsletter, which always included a wall of shame section for violations. Last month, Gregson down the street made the list for non-regulation mailbox numbering. "Brenda," I said, trying to summon my most reasonable adult voice. "It's just a ramp. For my son. It's not even permanent. It's just sitting on the grass." She produced a small, laminated card from her pocket. I swear to God, she had them laminated. "It is a clear violation of Bylaw 47C," she recited, her eyes dead and cold. "Unauthorized recreational apparatus. We have rules for a reason, Mr. Henderson, to maintain property values." She paused for dramatic effect. "And harmony," she said. Harmony. Like it was a threat. Like it was a concrete block she was about to drop on my foot. "I mean, come on," I said, a little whine creeping into my voice. "It's for a kid." "The bylaws do not make exceptions for age," she said, as if I'd suggested letting toddlers commit light arson. She pulled a crisp, beige envelope from a clipboard. "This is your first official warning. You have 10 days to remove the non-compliant structure. After that, a fine of $100 per day will be levied against your property." She handed me the envelope. It felt heavy, like it was full of compressed disappointment. "Have a harmonious day, Mr. Henderson." She turned, her sensible walking shoes making zero sound on the pavement, and marched back to her taupe-colored golf cart, the official chariot of the Whispering Pines Gestapo. I looked at the beige envelope. I looked at the little ramp where Leo had left his skateboard, the graphic on the bottom a splash of vibrant, offensive color in our world of beige. $100. A day. For a piece of wood. The war had begun, and she had just handed me the declaration. That night, dinner was a quiet affair. We were eating in what I call the defeat trough. Leo wasn't just moping. He was performing a one-act play of adolescent despair, pushing a single green bean around his plate with his fork. "So I have to take it down?" he mumbled, his voice cracking. I looked at Sarah. Her expression was the one I'd come to dread, the let's not make waves face. "Mike," she said softly, putting her hand on mine. "Just take it down. Please. It's not worth the fight. It's Brenda. You can't win against Brenda." "We can take him to the skate park on Saturdays," she offered, trying to smooth things over. "The skate park is 40 minutes away," I argued, maybe a little too loud. "And it's full of teenagers with tattoos and, skills." "It's not about the ramp, Sarah," I said, lowering my voice. "It's the principle." She didn't even ask. She didn't knock and say, "Hey, Mike, could we talk about the ramp?" She just decreed, from on high, from her beige throne. "I know," Sarah sighed. "But sometimes you just have to pick your battles." Leo, sensing his cause was lost, let out a gusty sigh, scraped his chair back, and disappeared up to his room, the blue light of his phone already illuminating the dark hallway before the door even clicked shut. I felt a hot, stubborn spike in my chest. Sarah was right. It was just a ramp. It would take me 20 minutes to disassemble it. I could just let it go, but I couldn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator. I went downstairs, not to the garage to get a sledgehammer, but to my office. On the bottom shelf of my bookcase, gathering dust, was a 3-inch white binder. It had been presented to us at our closing, like a sacred text. The Whispering Pines covenants, conditions, and restrictions. I pulled it out. It was heavier than a brick, and I was pretty sure had been written specifically to bore people into submission. I put on the coffee pot. If I was going to do this, I needed fuel. And my spite was already running at full capacity. For the next 3 hours, I read. I learned more about Whispering Pines than any sane person should. I learned the precise, approved paint codes for exterior trim. 3 options. All white. I learned that any garden shed must be pre-approved by the Architectural Review Committee. I learned that political signs could only be displayed 30 days prior to an election and must be removed within 24 hours of the polls closing. My eyes were gritty. My brain felt like it was full of wet sand. And then, at 2:17 a.m., I found it. I reread Bylaw 47C, the one she'd quoted at me. It was incredibly specific. It banned unauthorized temporary structures, including, but not limited to, ramps, half-pipes, rails, and similar skateboarding-specific apparatuses. She had me dead to rights, on the ramp. But, as I flipped the page, my coffee-fueled, rage-addled brain caught a new section. Section 72, Permanent Property Improvements and Sporting Courts. My heart did a little thump. I read the text, and reread it. It was beautiful. It was poetry. The bylaw defined a permanent sporting court as any paved, concrete, or otherwise professionally prepared surface intended for athletic activity. It listed examples, including but not limited to tennis courts, basketball courts, shuffleboard courts, and pickleball courts. And here was the money shot. Or other surfaces designed for group recreational activities. It only had two restrictions. 1. The structure must adhere to all county setbacks, 5 feet from the property line, and 2. Any surrounding fence must not exceed 8 feet in height. It said nothing about what sport. It said nothing about pre-approval from the board, only that the plans must be filed with the county. I looked at 47C. Then I looked at 72A. A slow, evil, and deeply satisfying grin spread across my face. Group recreational activity, I whispered into the silent, beige-hating darkness of my office. Brenda, you have no idea. I pulled out my phone and typed a question into the search bar. What is the regulation size of a banked track roller derby rink? The next morning, I was on the phone at 8:01 a.m. I found a company in the online listings with a name that inspired confidence: Sal's Concrete and Construction. Their tagline was just, "We pour." A voice that sounded like it had been gargling gravel and whiskey for 40 years answered on the second ring. "Yeah, Sal speaking." "Hi, Sal," I said, trying to sound normal and not like a man who was about to light a very expensive match. "My name is Mike Henderson. I'm looking to get a quote on a backyard sporting court." "Sure thing, champ," Sal grunted. "Basketball, tennis, pickleball's real hot, right? Now. Putting in 3 of them this week. Old folks love it." "Actually," I said, taking a deep breath, "I was thinking of a roller derby rink. Banked track." There was a long, dead air pause on the line. I could hear a distant whir of a saw. Then it stopped. "You're gonna have to repeat that, champ," Sal said. "A full-size, regulation, banked track roller derby rink. In my backyard." Another pause. This one was shorter. It was followed by a sound that started as a low chuckle and erupted into a full-blown, hacking cough of a laugh. "Oh, man," he wheezed. "Oh, that's a new one. Where you at? I gotta see this." An hour later, a Ram 3500 dually that looked like it ate Priuses for breakfast pulled up to my curb. Sal got out. He was exactly as I'd pictured: stocky, plaid flannel shirt despite the 80-degree heat, and a face so weathered it looked like a topographical map of a very angry mountain range. He stomped onto my lawn, looked at my beige house, looked at the pristine beige neighborhood, and then looked at me. "You're the derby guy?" "I'm the derby guy." I walked him to the backyard. He saw the tiny, pathetic little skateboard ramp sitting on the grass. He looked at it. Then he looked at the vast, empty, perfectly manicured rectangle of my backyard. Then he looked over at the house next door, where Brenda was, I kid you not, discreetly filming us from behind her kitchen blinds. A slow, beautiful grin, missing one tooth, spread across Sal's face. "You're serious," he said. It wasn't a question. "Regulation size," I said. "Banked track. Gotta be up to code. County code. Every code." "Who are you trying to piss off, son?" he asked, his eyes twinkling. "No, wait. Don't tell me." He jerked his thumb toward Brenda's window. "It's her, ain't it? The curtain twitcher." "I just want a safe place for my son and his, group recreational activities," I said, testing the phrase. Sal let out another bark of laughter. "Kid, this is the stupidest, most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Yeah, we can do this. Gonna be a hell of a lot of rebar. And concrete. You're talking a lot of concrete. Whatever it takes, Sal. As long as it's a permanent sporting court, as defined by my HOA bylaws. You're a sick man, Mike, he said, clapping me on the shoulder hard enough to realign my spine. I love it. I'll have the plans drawn up by Tuesday. We'll file them with the county ourselves. We'll follow county code to the letter. He was still chuckling as he got back in his truck, the diesel engine roaring to life and belching a cloud of distinctly non-HOA-approved black smoke. That night, I showed Sarah the quote. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the number on the bottom line. Her face went pale. Mike, I know. Mike, this is $35,000. It's $36,450, actually, if we include the professional-grade epoxy sealant, which Sal says we really should for longevity. She looked up from the paper. Her eyes were wide. This is a car. This is a down payment on a condo. You want to spend $36,000 to piss off Brenda? No, I said, a little too defensively. I want to invest in our property, in family fitness, and yes, also to piss off Brenda, but mostly the fitness and the property. She stared at me. I stared at her. The clock on the wall ticked. I could feel the sweat starting to form on my neck. This was the real final boss, not Brenda. Finally, she let out a long, slow sigh. She looked at the quote. She looked at me. A tiny smile played at the corner of her mouth. You are, she said, an absolute, complete, and total idiot. I know. Make sure they paint lines on it, she said, sliding the quote back across the table. Real professional ones. And a logo in the middle. What kind of logo? I don't know, she said, standing up. A flaming skull, or a giant beige-colored middle finger. You'll think of something. And that, right there, is why I married her. The following Monday, at 7:01 a.m., a bright yellow excavator, trucked in on a massive flatbed, rolled down our quiet, beige street. The sound of its diesel engine was a beautiful, disruptive roar in the morning calm. This was followed by a dump truck and a cement mixer. Sal, it turned out, did not mess around. My backyard, my pristine, HOA-approved patch of fescue, was about to become a war zone. I was on the porch, sipping my coffee, and feeling like a general on the morning of a great battle. The excavator hadn't even lowered its bucket before she appeared. Brenda. She was in her bathrobe, a beige one, of course, and her hair was in a frantic, un-Brenda-like state. She had driven her golf cart halfway onto my lawn, coming to a skidding halt that tore up a 4-inch patch of turf. I almost fined her. "Stop!" she shrieked, waving her arms. "Stop this instant! What do you think you are doing?" Sal's crew, to their credit, stopped. The excavator operator, a guy with a magnificent handlebar mustache, just leaned on his joystick and watched. "Mr. Henderson!" Brenda marched up to my porch, her face a blotchy, furious red. "I am fining you! This is a major, major violation! You do not have approval for this!" I took a slow sip of my coffee. "Morning, Brenda. Beautiful day for some landscaping, isn't it? Love what you've done with your lawn." I motioned to the tire track. "Do not play dumb with me. You are in breach of Bylaw 47C. I gave you 10 days. Your time is not up, but this is an escalation." "Oh no, Brenda," I said, setting my mug down. "You're mistaken. I already took care of the 47C violation." I pointed to the side of the house. The little plywood ramp was gone. I'd dutifully disassembled it last night. "This," I said, gesturing to the giant yellow machine about to gouge a hole in my yard, "is something else entirely. This isn't a ramp." Her face went blank. "What?" "This," I said, pulling a rolled-up set of blueprints from my mailbox, "is a permanent sporting court, as per Section 72A. I unfurled the plans. They were huge, professionally drafted, and had a very large, very official-looking red stamp on the bottom corner from the county planning office. "We filed the plans with the county last week," I said, my voice dripping with false helpfulness. "Got the permit right here. It's a surface for group recreational activities, totally by the book." I handed her a copy of the city-approved permit. I wish I had a camera. She looked at the paper like it had personally insulted her mother. Her mouth opened and closed. Her brain was doing that little buffering wheel thing, frantically searching its internal database for the rule that said, "No roller rinks." Spoiler, it didn't exist. You can't," she sputtered. This is a rink." "It's a sporting court, Brenda," I corrected gently. "Like for pickleball, but, oval. And banked." I will stop this," she finally screamed. She turned, marched back to her golf cart, and sped off, her tires spinning on the dew-covered grass. The excavator operator looked at me. I looked at him. "You're clear, boys," I shouted. "Let's dig." He grinned, gave me a thumbs up, and the world's most glorious chomp sounded as the bucket bit into the earth. The next 3 days were pure, unadulterated suburban chaos. My yard was a sea of mud, rebar, and large tattooed men yelling over the sound of machinery. They played classic rock. Loudly. The first concrete truck arrived. Then the second. Then the third. Neighbors emerged, one by one. They'd come out to get their mail, see the industrial-scale operation unfolding in my backyard, and just freeze. Their faces were a perfect mix of horror, confusion, and a tiny, secret spark of awe. They looked at me. I'd just wave and smile, and they'd scurry back inside, no doubt to report back to the central hive mind, Brenda. Sal was there every day, overseeing it all like a proud, gravel-voiced maestro. "Gonna pour the banking tomorrow," he yelled at me over the din. "This thing's gonna be a beauty. You're a legend, Mike. My guys are calling this Project Spite Rink." "Just make sure it's up to code, Sal," I yelled back. "To the millimeter, kid. To the millimeter." By Thursday, the basic shape was there. It was no longer a mud pit. It was a recognizable, massive concrete oval. It was obscene. It was beautiful. Brenda, having failed to find a bylaw, had clearly escalated. I was in the kitchen making a sandwich when I saw the flashing blue and red lights slide past my window. A moment later, 2 of Whispering Pine's finest were walking up my driveway. Brenda was right on their heels, practically vibrating. She'd clearly flagged them down and was giving them an earful. "Officers, thank God! This man is building an illegal, a racetrack in his backyard. It's a menace! The noise! The workers they're very menacing." I walked outside, my half-eaten turkey sandwich in hand. The 2 officers looked at me. The first was Officer Miller, a guy who'd been on the force for 20 years and looked like he was permanently 3 days from retirement. The second was Officer Davis, a rookie, young and clearly trying to maintain a professional, serious face. "Sir," Officer Miller said, his voice a monotone of pure exhaustion. What's going on here?" "Morning, officer," I said cheerfully. "Just putting in a sporting court for my son and his group activities." Officer Davis, the rookie, craned his neck, looking past me at the massive, banked concrete structure. His eyes widened. "Sir," Davis said, a note of disbelief in his voice. Is that a roller derby rink?" "Yes, officer," I said proudly. "We're very excited. Family fitness, you know." "It's illegal!" Brenda shrieked from behind them. "It violates HOA bylaws. It's a hazard to the children. He is unpermitted, menacing workers." Officer Miller turned his head very, very slowly to look at Brenda. It was a look of profound weariness. "Ma'am," he sighed, "we've been over this. The HOA is a civil matter. It's not a police matter. I can't arrest him for his choice of athletic surfaces." He turned back to me. "Sir, I do have to ask about the construction. Did you get the proper city permits for this structure?" This was the moment. The checkmate. "Yes, sir, I did," I said. I walked over to the construction sign Sal had dutifully posted, which had all the permits in a plastic sleeve. I pulled out the main one, still stamped with the county's big red approved mark. "Right here," I said, handing it to him. "Approved by the city planning office last week. All inspections are green lit." Officer Miller took the paper. He looked at it. He looked at the half-built rink. He looked at Brenda, who was now breathing so hard I thought she might hyperventilate. He looked back at me. He handed the permit back. "Well," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "looks like your paperwork is in order." "Thank you, officer," I said. "Ma'am," he said to Brenda, "there's no crime being committed here. These men are allowed to work. Please stop calling 911 unless there is an actual emergency." But, the Harmony," she whimpered. "Ma'am, I'm not the Harmony police." Miller tipped his hat to me. "Have a good day, sir. Try to keep the derbying to a reasonable hour." "Yes, sir." As they walked back to their patrol car, I was just close enough to overhear the conversation between them. Officer Davis, the rookie, was trying and failing to hide his grin. "A full-size derby rink. I'm not gonna lie, Sarge, that's kind of awesome. His kid is gonna be the coolest on the block." Officer Miller just shook his head, climbing into the driver's seat. "I don't get paid enough for this. I really, really don't." I finished my sandwich. It was the best turkey sandwich I'd ever eaten. The next week was a blur of progress. The concrete cured. The welders came and installed thick, regulation-height steel railings. The painters arrived. I'd chosen the color myself, a bright, beautiful, obnoxious shade of electric blue for the epoxy sealant on the track surface. It was the least beige color I could find. Sal's crew was a whirlwind. They painted the white lines for the jammer and pivot. As per Sarah's request, they painted a giant logo in the center. After much debate, we hadn't gone with the middle finger. We'd settled on something more subtle. A detailed, snarling honey badger with the words non ducor, duco written underneath. "What's that mean?" Sal asked, looking at the stencil. "It's Latin," I said. "I am not led, I lead." "Huh. I thought it meant don't mess with Mike," Sal laughed. "Looks good." The day before the crew packed up, the second letter arrived. This one wasn't a beige envelope. It was a thick, creamy, expensive-feeling envelope from a law firm. Pinstripe, and beige, I assumed. It was a formal cease and desist. Brenda had found a new angle. Her lawyer, in beautifully verbose legalese, claimed the rink was a visual nuisance, an acoustic hazard, and my personal favorite, not in keeping with the established aesthetic and character of the Whispering Pines community. They were threatening an injunction. My heart sank. This was the big leagues. I did the only thing I could. I hired my own lawyer. I found a guy online whose specialty was listed as HOA disputes. I paid him for 1 hour of his time. I faxed him, yes, faxed, he was old school, the HOA bylaws, Sal's permits, and the cease and desist letter. He called me back 20 minutes later. "Mike," he said, his voice crackling with amusement. "This is hilarious." "Is it?" I asked, my stomach in knots. "They're threatening an injunction." "Let 'em try," the lawyer cackled. "Their letter is, and this is a legal term, amusingly unenforceable. You filed with the county. The county approved it. Your bylaw 72A gives them no power over what kind of court you build, only where." As for the aesthetic argument. Aesthetic is a subjective term, Mike. A court can't shut you down for visual nuisance just because your neighbor doesn't like the color blue. They'd have to prove it's causing tangible harm, which it isn't. I felt the tension release from my shoulders. So what do I do? You do nothing. You let them file. A judge will laugh them out of court. "Oh," he added, "I'd also suggest, as a gesture of goodwill, that you write a letter to the board inviting them over for a community skate night. It'll look great for your side." I told Sarah the plan. "You're not really inviting Brenda to a skate night," she said. "No, God no," I replied. "But I am buying floodlights." The next day, Sal and his crew packed up their tools. The job was done. The dump trucks were gone. The excavator was gone. The mud was gone, replaced by fresh new sod Sal had laid around the perimeter. In my backyard stood a monument. It was massive. It was bright blue. It was professionally railed, perfectly lined, and absolutely, unequivocally, the most beautiful and absurd thing I had ever seen. Sal wiped his hands on a rag and came over to shake my hand. "Well, kid," he said, that gravelly grin back in place. "There she is. The dumbest, most expensive I told you so in the county." It's magnificent, Sal," I said, genuinely moved. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," he grunted, climbing into his truck. "Just do me one favor. Anything. Send me pictures of her face when you turn on the lights." It was Saturday, the grand opening. I'd spent a small fortune at the sporting goods store. We had brand new roller skates, quads, of course, for me, Sarah, and Leo. I'd also bought a bulk pack of helmets, elbow pads, and knee pads. My lawyer had been very specific about mitigating liability, so I'd also printed out a stack of waivers. Leo's friends, who had been vibrating with excitement all week, were all lined up at the new side gate, their parents dutifully signing forms. "Okay," I said, strapping on my helmet. It felt ridiculous. "Rules. Number 1, everyone wears a helmet and pads. No exceptions. Number 2, music is off by 8 p.m. Number 3, no checking or blocking until we've all had a chance to, not fall down." A cheer went up. I had a boombox, a retro one I'd bought just for this, plugged into an extension cord. I'd made a playlist. I pressed play. The opening guitar riff of Queen's "Don't Stop Me Now" blasted across the pristine beige neighborhood. "Let's roll," I said. The three of us, me, Sarah, and Leo, rolled onto the track for the first lap. It was wobbly. It was awkward. Sarah shrieked as she hit the bank for the first time, grabbing my arm. I almost went down. But Leo was a natural. He took off, his face split in a grin of pure, unadulterated joy. He was fast. Within minutes, the rink was full of kids. They were laughing, they were falling, they were having the time of their lives. It was loud, it was chaotic, and it was perfect. I looked at Leo, zipping around the track, his hair flying. He caught my eye, and in that moment, he looked at me like I was a superhero, like I'd pulled Excalibur from the stone. It was worth every single one of the $36,000. And then, she came. I should have known she wouldn't use the front path. The azalea bushes that separated our properties, bushes I had personally pruned to exactly the 36-inch height limit, rustled, and then burst open. Brenda. She stormed into the backyard, her face a shade of crimson that was definitely not HOA approved. She had leaves in her hair. She was in full meltdown mode. "Shut it down!" she screamed, her voice cracking over the sound of Freddie Mercury. "Shut this circus down! Right now!" The music stopped. The kids all skidded to a halt. The world went silent, except for Brenda's ragged breathing. She marched right up to the railing. I rolled to a smooth, graceful stop right in front of her. I was, I had to admit, framed perfectly by the setting sun and my ridiculous bright blue rink. "Brenda," I said, lifting the visor on my helmet. "Glad you could make it. We're just enjoying our group recreational activity. As per Section 72A. Would you like to skate? I think we have a spare helmet. It's a large." She sputtered. Her brain was completely broken. She was staring at a dozen children in helmets, a waiver sheet, and a structure that was, by all legal definitions, completely and totally allowed. This is not a sporting court," she shrieked. "This is a monstrosity. It's a nuisance." "Nuisance?" I said, leaning on the rail. "Brenda, it's 4 p.m. on a Saturday. I'm just a father playing with his son, the same son," I added, my voice getting a little sharper, "that you fined for having a piece of wood on the grass. You really want to stand here in front of all his friends and tell the neighborhood kids they can't play?" And that's when I saw it. The turning of the tide. All around us, my neighbors had emerged. Not to complain, but to watch. Mr. Gregson, of the non-regulation mailbox. The couple from down the street who had to repaint their excessively bright yellow front door. They were all on their porches, in their yards, watching. And for the first time since I'd moved in, they weren't looking at me like I was the crazy one. They were looking at Brenda. She saw them too. She saw the eyes. She saw the new harmony forming, one that didn't include her. She was no longer the queen. She was just a crazy lady in a bush, yelling at a bunch of kids in helmets. She had no bylaws. She had no police. She had no allies. She let out a small, strangled sound, like a dying balloon. She turned without another word and marched back through the hole she'd made in the azaleas. I waited a beat. Then I turned to the boombox and hit play again. "Don't stop me now," Freddie yelled, "'cause I'm having a good time." A cheer went up from the kids, and the sound of polyurethane wheels on blue epoxy filled the air. The rink stayed. The HOA's lawyer sent one more letter, this one much less confident. My lawyer sent a one-sentence reply. We never heard from them again. The threatened injunction never materialized. The original $100 fine for the ramp, however, still sat on my counter. My backyard became the spot. Leo was a local legend. I was the cool dad. I ran a tight ship, helmets on, waivers signed, music off by 8 p.m. sharp. I was the most responsible, irresponsible parent on the block. Even Sarah got good on skates. We'd go out after dinner, just the two of us, and do a few laps, holding hands. It was, in a word, harmonious. A few, Months later, I was sitting on the porch with Sarah, watching Leo and his friends skate under the tasteful, low-lumen, county-approved floodlights. "You know," Sarah said, sipping her wine, "that $100 fine for the ramp is still sitting on the counter. It's getting dusty." "I know," I said. "I'm thinking of paying it." "Really?" "Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to get that many pennies to the bank." She sighed, then smiled, leaning her head on my shoulder. "You're an idiot, Mike." "I know," I said, watching my son nail a crossover turn. "But our property value is unique." I looked across the street. Brenda's house, the beigest of them all, had a "for sale" sign on the lawn. It had been there for a week. Seems the harmony around here just wasn't harmonious enough for her. As for me, I'm thinking of starting a neighborhood roller derby team. We've already got a few interested parents. We're getting t-shirts made. We're calling ourselves the Bylaw Breakers.